guys. It took me a while to get this set up, not gonna lie. Let's just start off by saying my name. My name is Meela. I am a nanny in New York City, a full-time education student, and I do a lot of stuff. And I'm super busy and super stressed out. So I just kind of wanted to film this video. I've been trying for probably like 2 weeks to film a video about the nanny life. I am incredibly busy and incredibly stressed out. But if I don't start now, it'll never happen. So I said, why not? Let's just do it, right? This video is entirely unscripted, entirely unplanned. We're natural face, no makeup, avocado stains on the sweater, and this is my lunch break. So let's get started. I figured we can do a little background about how I got involved in the nanny community, and then if you guys have any questions like how do I get involved and all that stuff, feel free to leave it down in the comments and I'll get back to you guys. So let's start with how I became a nanny. I've been involved with children and education like my entire life, quite honestly. I started teaching in high school when I was a junior or senior. I think I officially started teaching my senior year, and it was a Common Core preparation course in English freshman year. I was teaching freshmen my senior year, and yeah, that's kind of like what got me started being involved with children. After I graduated high school though, I kind of reached this like awkward position where I was like, you're too young to teach and or be a guidance counselor or be a mentor or be anything like that, because when I graduated I was only 17. Most people want you to be at least 18, but the ongoing number I saw was like 21 to do any type of mentorship or anything like that. So my course kind of changed from being focused on education to kind of just doing retail, because that's the only people who would take me, I guess. So I ended up working at like Target, Home Depot, all that stuff. It wasn't until the pandemic that I started taking childcare more seriously. Like, of course, I babysat and I did do like short-term nannying and things like that. And if you ever needed someone to watch your kid for a week or two, you called me and I would come stay over and watch your house and watch your children. But once the pandemic started, the money was not good. The money was not good enough. And I tell anyone who's working retail or works in a restaurant in the food industry, it is very hard and very taxing and a very unpaid and unappreciated job. I have several horror stories from me working at Target and Home Depot. The anxiety comes back just thinking about it. Yeah, so pandemic started. I ended up quitting my job at Home Depot. It was just really underpaid. At the time I was working in Long Island, not in Brooklyn, because I lived in Long Island at the time. And I didn't realize when transferring from Brooklyn, a Home Depot based in Brooklyn, to Long Island that my pay would change. Minimum wage in Brooklyn is $15, and in Long Island I believe it's $13.50. And since I had been working at Home Depot for a while, I made a little bit over $15, not by much. Definitely nothing noteworthy. But then when I ended up moving to Long Island, it was like a significant pay cut, because now I'm only getting paid $13.50. Yeah, I just heard something really strange. So yeah, ended up quitting Home Depot at that point at the beginning of the pandemic and filing for unemployment. Now, that was like the most relaxed time I've ever had being on unemployment. Story for another time, but yeah, it definitely was a break that was well needed from working 12-hour shifts most days and going to school. After I quit Home Depot, I was kind of like, I can't keep leaving my jobs and like I can't keep being unemployed for a certain amount of times. I was never unemployed for long, but it was just like the inconsistency for me, especially in terms of like the paycheck. The hours were horrible. I would either get a lot of hours, like a ridiculous amount of hours, or like 4 hours, which is literally 1 day of working within a week, which just was not enough to support me and the things that I want to do. So at this point, it's pandemic just started. Summer's heading towards the end, and I'm kind of getting nervous. And I'm like, well, what am I gonna do? I took a job working at an after school. Um, it didn't last that long. It only lasted a few months, and the reason being, again, I'm living on Long Island and I'm traveling to an after school program in Brooklyn to only make $15. It might have been 18. I don't want to misinform, but it was between like $15 and $18 an hour. But I'm pretty sure it's more like $15 or $16 per hour. And taxes is coming out of it, and I have to pay for my own transportation and food. And to get there, simply put, to get there was already like 2 hours of my time one way. So in the end, it just didn't seem worth it to travel 4 hours to and from work and just to barely make, I think I was making maybe $350, probably less than that. And that's for 2 weeks worth of pay. It just was not enough. And at the time, I was really trying to move out. So crunching the numbers, I was like, okay, $350 times 2, $700 per month after taxes. That is insane. That is insane. That is not enough money to survive in New York City at all. It is not enough to even pay your rent with. Quite honestly, it just wasn't it. So at this point, I was like, again, in between a rock and a hard place, not knowing what I wanted to do. I had to have a job that worked well with my school schedule. I was still in school full time. And it just didn't seem like anything was looking up. So at this point, I ended up moving from Long Island. I moved out of my dad's place and ended up staying with my aunt who lived in Far Rockaway, which you guys don't know. I don't know if Far Rockaway is technically part of Brooklyn. I've lived here my whole life, but in my mind, Brooklyn and Far Rockaway are separate. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're from Brooklyn or like New York City, then you'll understand what I'm saying when I say that. So I ended up moving to my aunt's house for only about a month, just to kind of like help me with in terms of traveling to and from work and stuff, and to see how much money I could really save. And during that time is when I just said, let me try Care.com and let me see how it goes. Applying on Care.com was an interesting process. It was definitely like the first time I've been responsible for replying to people in a timely fashion and for communicating on a professional level while still trying to be like friendly and warm and open with other people, because you are working with kids and yet they expect a certain level of professionalism from you. So I ended up working with a single mom and her lovely daughter for a very, 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 very short amount of time. Embarrassingly so. And if you guys want to hear that story as to why I ended up only working for quite literally 3 days, I think 3 working days, that is all. If you guys want to hear that story, it's a lot, and it's a lot of tea. Yeah. So my first day there, we're doing the interview process. And I'm like, okay, well, she seems like a really good person and everything seems to be what it should be. And then she mentions the pay. And I'm going to throw the numbers out. I hope that no one's offended by this, or I just feel like it's more realistic, to hear specific numbers if you're trying to do the same thing or relatively same thing in the same area and what have you. So I think the hours I was expected to work were 7:30 in the morning until 4:30, and it was a salary-based job. I was making $500 per week, and yeah, that was the job. The kid was in school at least half of the day, and then I would do drop off to school, clean up in the home, maybe do some meal prep, laundry, things like that, pick the kid up, maybe hang out for a little bit, bring them home, do dinner, bath time, all of that stuff, and then the mom would come back and relieve me. Like I said, it only lasted 3 days, so it was kind of hard to develop a routine or anything like that. But that job was like my introduction to the formal nannying world, and it taught me a lot of things. A lot of things. A lot. Like so many things. First of all, if you're a nanny in any area, you cannot be paid a salary. You have to be paid hourly. And so what ended up happening, was she would end up coming home later and things like that, and I wasn't getting paid any extra for that time that I stayed later because I was paid a salary, and that, that was that. Second thing, I didn't have a contract, and so when I ended up getting fired, I didn't have any financial or legal protection against myself, which was really disheartening because, again, I just started. I was like, you couldn't even give me a full week. And so that was really hard because I already moved out of my house and I already signed a lease. So, again, stuck in between a rock and a hard place. Yeah, so just not having contracts and getting paid on a salary, those two issues. Not having overtime laid out in a contract so that if the parent gets home an hour late or 15 minutes late or 30 minutes late, whatever you want in your policy and they agree to, whatever that is established. We didn't have anything established in terms of those rules. And that was kind of like my introduction to the nannying world. I learned a lot within those 3 days. I learned again about the importance of contracts. I learned the importance of networking with other nannies. I'm in several nannying groups, Nannies of New York City being one of them. Not sponsored, by the way, guys. If you're a nanny in New York City and you need connections, that's an awesome group, and I found a lot of information through there, and just like a good support team and community, because as nannies, we don't have coworkers or anything like that, and it could be a really, really lonely job, especially if you're like me in New York City and one of the few out of the bunch who are super young. When I started nannying, I was 20 years old. I was 20 years old, or was I 19? I might have been 19. Like officially nannying. And so it was definitely a learning curve. It definitely was like learning to be your own boss, but also like mingle with other people and respect their boundaries and your wants. And yeah. I ended up working with 2 other families since then. Second family I'm still currently working with, and I love it here, and it's awesome, and it's everything that I need. But I just kind of wanted to introduce like my story and how I began nannying. If there's anything that you want to hear more details about, I'll probably say the story of why I got fired after 3 days, and any tips that I have for you. And I also do have a what's in my nanny bag blog type of thing coming up, so should be interesting. But feel free to leave any questions that you have below, like how much I get paid, any nanny activities, nanny horror stories, whatever. I'm down to do anything pretty much. Yeah, and I'm super excited. I want to open up another community for our nannies to kind of like interact with each other and learn from each other, and most important, support each other. This is like a judgment-free zone, a hate-free zone. I want us to support each other because nannying is by far one of the hardest and one of the most rewarding jobs and careers that I've ever been involved in. I am studying education right now, and I can honestly say I don't know if I'm going to continue or if I plan to teach in the school after I graduate, just because I've grown so much love and respect for my profession. But this is the video. I rambled on for almost like 20 minutes, so I'm gonna let you guys go. Be awesome, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.